Designing any sort of game can be a wild ride. Expanding that to make sure most people feel like they can join into your project can be even more difficult. This week, I'm joined by Jonathon, lead designer of Arkelon Chronicles, to talk about working in a second language, making your project more accessible, and measures taken to include a more diverse cast of cultures from around the world. Welcome to Scheduled for Launch, a podcast to discover projects you may have missed. My name's Zach, and I am very excited to be reattempting to do this interview with Jonathon from Arkelon Chronicles and Wendigo Workshop. Jonathon, thank you so much for being so understanding and deciding to come back on here.
Really, no problem. Technology does this thing, so these are things that happens.
So, before we really get into what Arkelon Chronicles is and everything that you and your team have been working on, can you tell everybody a little bit about yourself?
Yes, of course. So I have a degree in video game design and also in theater. I've been working with Gearbox Softwares for like 2 years, and before that, I worked for Binox, like a branch of Activision. Um, And I've been developing like tabletop games and doing some D&D and Pathfinder work for like 10 years or something.
That's a lot longer than I expected, actually, because from what I'm aware, Arkelon Chronicles has been in development for about 6 years, correct?
Yeah, around 6 years. More seriously for like maybe four, but it started 6 years ago, yeah.
So, what exactly is Arkelon Chronicles?
So, Arkelon Chronicles is a tabletop role-playing games that is um, set in a world where magic and technology is living together. Um, it's a world where we try to integrate technology and spirituality together, but we also try to give a lot of freedom to people to create a character they want, and also have them live the adventure they want to, because it's a very advanced world. You can basically do whatever you want in it.
Yeah, and I've gotten a chance to look at the playtest, and that's been incredibly cool. I love everything about this game so far, actually. Unfortunately, I had to postpone that that little trial that I was going to be doing, but my friends and I are still talking about it. You have a very, very cool system that it seems like there's some really interesting rules that keep it both well defined and tricky for advanced players, but also simple enough that a newer player can come in, pick up, and learn within the first session or two.
Yeah, we try to develop the rules of the game for newer people to be able to like easily understand them, but also give players that are more advanced and are more used to role-playing games just have their own little sets of rules that they can play with, optional rules of like permanent injuries and stuff like that, where people that are more advanced and really want to delve in this more complicated rules can just get in and use them.
Yeah, I think that that's a really good way to go about it too. So you mentioned a little bit about your team. That's Wendigo Workshop, correct?
Yes, exactly.
So can you tell me a little bit about how you and the team met and how you all kind of got together and started working on Archelon Chronicles?
Yeah, we are a team that met like something 10 years ish ago playing Dungeons and Dragons 4th edition, and then we switched to Pathfinder because it was better. But we've known each other for a while, and we met in like Cégep is something in Quebec that is similar to college, but it's not really college. And we just started from there. We started meddling with some like custom classes for fourth edition when we were playing that, and then with Pathfinder, and we just started to work together and say, oh yeah, we could create a game. I mean, we developed so much custom content that maybe we could just, instead of creating things for games that already exist, maybe we could create our own.
I'm guessing a lot of your development came from video game background, correct?
Yes, exactly.
So, how did you transfer the rules from game design into these really interesting rules for tabletop? Is it very different or is it pretty similar?
I think there's a part of it that is quite similar because playing is always an experience. Like you sit somewhere, either in front of a TV or on a table, and you play something, you experience something. So what's different between the tabletop world and the game, like video game world, is mostly because tabletop games is really customized, like from the perspective of a player. When you play video games, yes, there are some liberties for the player, but it never is like the game will never react to what you do. So, or at least not in the same way that a game master will. So it's really like some kind of adapting, like, okay, we want a mechanic that gives a feeling of something. So how can we translate that to a game where there's no code, or there's nothing to really control? So I think that's basically the biggest like challenge of creating a tabletop role playing game is just how do we adapt rules for something that is not already written, or there's no script, or there's nothing that will say, oh yeah, if you do this, this will happen. Like it's always random, so we try to create something that plays around. Yes, it's random, but there's also some kind of guide for players.
So, it's more like building a guide and a skeleton than it is designing a full game, right?
Yeah, we have like our own settings, and we have the rules for like combat and auto combat, which are not in the playtest because they were not really perfect at the time. So like everything for social encounters and how to deal with that is not exactly implemented yet. But we really try to create a system that you can. There are some rules. There are ground rules that dictates like, okay, when you get attacked, you do this, or when you use that spell, it does that. But we still try to keep it quite open so people can really um, play with what their character can do. So it's not just okay, so you do for example, like I don't know, you climb that mountain, but what if you can climb on creatures, or what if you can just use that skill to do something cool or different, that what climbing can just do at its core.
Okay. Yeah, I get that. I really like that philosophy there. One thing that I really wanted to talk to you about, and it was something that kind of really sparked our first conversation over Twitter, was that you and Wendigo Workshop have this very, very strong and open mention of having diversity and inclusion, and they're two hugely important factors for you and the folks you work with. How has this developed some of the choices that you've made when it's coming up with Arkelon Chronicles?
Well, we are a team of people that are pretty diverse at its core. We have a lot of people that are neurodivergent, so we really try to create rules that when these when people with people that are neurodivergent don't really understand some kind of parts, we really just try to change the rule to say, okay, so this is how we can explain it, so people that are different can understand it. Or we have people with ADHD. So how can we create a game that even these people that have problem focusing can still focus on the game? Or we really try to include like people and really play around with the rules. So like people that I'm so sorry for that.
Oh, that's okay. It happens.
um But yeah, we really try to play with the rules, so people that are different or people that have some issues can just understand the rules as they are, or give some tips for DM that deals with people that have more difficulties, that they can explain to them the rules in a way that they can understand them.
I think that is so hugely important, especially with the growing divergence of tabletop role playing games. I mean, 2020 itself was a huge increase for Dungeons and Dragons, and not just that really tells you that there's growth in the tabletop role playing game community. So that's amazing. I love that you are talking with your team and designing something that people can really approach this game with. I don't see that enough with up and coming tabletop games.
Yeah, I mean, we also have like a history major in the group. So when we design like races or stuff like that, we also try to like refer to it a lot. So when we design something, we try to just say, okay, so we want to design, like, for example, a race that uses, I don't know, I'm trying to find something that is stupid, but it gonna explain my point. But if you, like, I want to create a race that use inspiration from, I don't know, the English people. So I just say, okay, so what can we use from these people that are not offensive or are not like tropes that could be interpreted in a way that people will just say, "Oh yeah, but that's racist."
So yeah, you were mentioning using a history major to make sure that you weren't accidentally appropriating anything. One of the races that comes to mind, I can't quite remember the exact name for it, but it uses a lot of color. It looks like it's a female crow woman, and it you can very tell that there is some Hindu flair in it because of the colors and the fabric that she's wearing. And I found that, I mean, not much that I can say because I'm a white dude, but I found that it was like a really respectful, proper way to go about giving a nod to that community. But I absolutely love that piece of art.
We try to, especially with the Hindu culture, because they are especially like conservative of their stuff. So we really try to go in a direction that like you can feel that it has some inspiration, like either visually um or like color wise and stuff like that. But we really try to not go into the like, oh yeah, that is very inspired, but like especially Shiva or something really, really religious into the Hindu culture. So we want to give nods to cultures that are usually a little bit left out when we look at some designs, either video games or tabletop games. But we also want to use these inspiration like as they are inspirations. So we don't want to say, oh yeah, that is an Hindu person and it's exactly what they would wear. Like, we just it's just like we think it's an imaginary world, but we still want to stay respectful in what we depict because it's something that is important to like show some culture that may be a little bit left behind, but also not appropriate these and just say, oh yeah, we base that character on X deity and it's exactly the same costume and the exact same things. So we try to steer away from these kinds of like stereotypes and stuff like that.
And you can actually see that through the name of the company you guys started, Wendigo Workshop. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, since we are a small company from Quebec, we have a lot of First Nation people here, and in Canada overall. But the thing about Quebec is that a lot of the First Nations legends are also a lot are integrated a lot into the folklore from here because when people arrived here, the first thing they heard and the first thing they saw were the the indigenous people that were here. So like a lot of the legends that are from there, either it's the Wendigo or there's other or it's other creatures or legends that these people had. It's a lot. It melds a lot with those from the lumberjack that came that were here and worked in the woods and stuff like that. So we really try to integrate like these legends because yes, it's a lot of it's known for being a First Nation legend. As we have a person that is from the First Nations in the team, so we will try to integrate that also into the name of the company because here in Quebec we have a lot, as I said, legends that are from the First Nation that are melded with ours. So we try to integrate like the both together into the name of our company because this is something that is important to us to celebrate and see that these people, the First Nation, they exist, they are here, and they have a lot of things that they brought to us in the end.
Yeah, there really has been, and I think that a lot of younger Canadians are starting to kind of accept that as reality, and I hope so. I mean, I myself I'm Métis, though I can't tell you exactly how how far back that goes, but I feel that that's a really good way to go about it, especially one of the most ferocious and interesting of those legends being the Wendigo. So you actually being located in Quebec is something really interesting that I wanted to talk to you about. Obviously, Quebec, for not obviously, but for those of you who aren't from Canada or don't really know a whole lot about Canada, we are supposed to be a multi-linguist. I can't remember the word. A francophonic country with languages being both French and English. And obviously, if you guys are wanting to sell Arkelon Chronicles, I mean, I was able to read it. I can't speak French, so you created the English version. But I'm assuming that there's also been a push to make sure that there is a French version that will be released alongside it. Uh, is that correct?
Yes, exactly. We started with an English version because it's easier to market. Because we are from Quebec and people here speak French, but if we consider like that even in Quebec there's a lot of people that speak English, we really started with an English version to be able to market the project to a larger audience, but we really want to push for a French version because it's really important here in Quebec to just use French in everything. Like I work for Gearbox, and there's like a paper on the fridge from the Office de la Langue Française that says. Yes, this company uses French like softwares and stuff, but yeah. So it's something that is really used here and it's really important. So it's something that we want to develop, like having a French version of the game that we'll try to, as much as we can, release at the same time ish than the English version. But surely, since we have since we have a small team, um, we have like people that can proofread in French and English, so we really try to like develop both almost at the same time, so we can just like publish it, and people that speak only French can pick it up, and people that speak only English can pick it up too. And well, people can choose whichever language they prefer the game to be in.
But that's so important too, because I feel that when I go through and I look at a lot of other games, they're English only. And that sucks because there is a huge group of people who then have to labor over a book trying to read it. I picked up a game called Simbrum, which I didn't realize had an English version at first, but it came in Swedish, and I tried to figure that out. And eventually, I contacted the company; they were able to send me an English copy. But just imagining having to do that for every single game that I accidentally buy the wrong version of, it sucked.
And that's basically why we want to we want to push the game to be in both languages because we recently went to a small festival that we had here in Quebec. Well, a small that is quite big, but it's still a festival that now, since it was online, it also included France and Europe, like French places in Europe. But a lot of things that we had as a commentary, because since we only had the English version that was at a level that we're happy with, is a lot of question we had is the game will be in French, like, and it's a thing that comes quite often, also, that comes quite often, but it's something we want to bring to the table, having it in French, because there's surprisingly a lot of people that are asking it to be translated. So it's something we definitely want to bring.
That makes me really happy for you guys. I'm glad to hear that there's some interest from a wider audience because I only get to see the English side really. So I've been following Arkelon Chronicles for over a month now, and I've loved it. And one of the things I wanted to talk to you about was the results of that playtest there. I know that your Kickstarter is coming out soon, and I just wanted to hear how you all felt about the feedback that you received from your Kickstarter or your playtest.
Well, for now, what we received as a feedback is mostly positive. I think we didn't have a like bluntly evil review of it. Like people seem to enjoy it a lot. I think that the thing that came more as reviews and stuff like that, it's more like very minor, either adjustments or stuff like that. But there's nothing actually, for now on at least, nothing extremely major that came from the playtest. When we went to the festival, people seemed to really enjoy themselves. We had a young guy of like, I think it was 13 years old, that played, and it went very smoothly, understood the rules pretty fast. So I think we have something that people seem to enjoy a lot.
That's yeah, that makes me really happy. So speaking of young people, you and I, when we were talking, we've talked a lot over the past month. I've probably talked to you more than basically anybody outside of my direct family and partner. You mentioned to me that you have at least have run some games for a small group of young people for the past little while. Can you tell me a little bit about how you got involved with them?
Yeah, we one of our, like, the editor of the game works as a social worker, and while we were developing the game, I think we started to be a little bit more like full time on it. She was working at Gris Quebec, which is a place where young LGBT people can meet up and speak about their problems or just like make friends and stuff like that. And she came to me and said, "What about we bring the game there and see what happens?" So I said, I mean, we can try, we can see. I mean, I don't have a problem with that. So she just went there and brought the game. People were a little bit interested in playing Dungeons and Dragons at first. So she said, yeah, why not? I mean, people were interested in Dungeons and Dragons, so we can try. And since like for 2 years, they've been running games between themselves, and also not at the place. Actually, they were like, they picked up the small like demo book that we have and just brought them home, and they started to do even games between themselves, not even at the Gris. So we are pretty happy about that, because those people didn't really have friends before and were pretty shy to speak to each other. So it really started as a random thought that we had, but it became quite big in the end, because now we are sharing with them like the full version of the game, like in some sort of alpha version, and they seem to really enjoy it, that we just randomly brought it to them, and they now can play it, and they seem really happy about it.
I think that is super, super special because even if this game doesn't sell as well as you want it to, you have already affected the lives of some people in a tremendously positive way. So I just want to give you the utmost congratulations for that. That is incredible to hear.
Yeah, I mean, for us, even though, I mean, we do it because we like it. We do the game, we create the game because we enjoy it, and we love what we do. So in the end, the real thing that we want is people to enjoy the game. So even though if we sell 100 copy or if we sell 1 million copy, I mean, if people like it, that's what matters.
Well, I'll definitely be joining in on the Kickstarter and buying this game when it comes out on full release. One of the things that I also wanted to mention and talk about a little bit, because we go over this with all of them, COVID has been huge. How has the virus affected the development of Arkelon Chronicles? Did it affect it at all? Did it slow it down? Did it speed it up?
Well, the thing about COVID is that at first it didn't really do anything. We just continued to work on the game. It was everything was normal, and then it started. Like the COVID started for real, and that's when everything went to shit. Because everything was fine, and we were supposed to have like the Kickstarter last year actually, the same date. But with the COVID that started to slowly be a part of the world, we just said, okay, no, we won't do this year. But then after that, it continued to increase, and it continued to be bad. And our artist, like the main artist for the characters, lives in Italy.
Yes.
Um, So when it really started for real, Italy was a pretty bad place to be in, and
Yes, it
it's still
was.
a bad place to be to be in, honestly. And for him, it was really depressing and really bad. So a thing that happened as a result of the COVID is that like the his work was a little slower because I mean uh back there it was really bad, so we didn't want it to like push him, oh yeah, work and I don't care about you.
Yeah.
So we just said, yeah, but take care of yourself and just, I mean, it's a bad place to be in. Everything is bad. So we don't want to release a game that is coming from the sweat and despair of our artists. We really want to like release a game that people enjoy and that people that worked on it enjoyed too, because this is something that is also important to us, that people that work on the game, they, either the artists or writers or anything, they're not just like crying in their sleep because we are pushing them to their limits. It's something that happens in video games that we really don't want to happen like for this game. So we really want like if since it's bad, if it's since it's a bad place to be in right now, it's sure that it's set back a little bit of it of the project, like either the art or writing or stuff like that. But we don't want to release a game that comes from the despair of people, uh, because in the end, like people will know, people always know, and we don't want to be associated with a game that has this reputation of like exploiting people until they're like exhausted to the end of the world. We want to make a game for fun and for people to have fun, and that's something that drives us more than selling stuff and pushing it to be released as fast as we can.
Developer game crunch is definitely a huge topic around the world with all sorts of different developers at the moment. So you definitely want to not be doing that to your artist or any of your writers.
Yeah, no, that's not a thing we want. It's really, really far away from something we want.
So, we don't got a whole lot of time left, Jonathan, but one of the things I wanted to make sure to ask you, I'm going to ask this to everybody on this show. You and your team have worked really hard, and there are people out there who are looking to start somewhere. They've got no experience developing a game at all. Where would you suggest that they make sure that they don't? What would you suggest that they start with? Where do you think that they should start, or what is some advice you can give the people out there listening to this who really want to start creating something?
I think that the real thing about creating stuff is, well, first find something you like, because if you create a game or anything really that you hate, it's really difficult to get into it, because the brain is will just say, oh no, I hate this, and it's gonna be crap. But another thing is, start small. Like, don't say, oh yeah, I have no experience and I'm gonna make this huge gigantic game and it's gonna be the next Dungeons and Dragons and I'm gonna break the internet. Like, start small. Like, you know a thing. Like, for example, if you play Pathfinder or Dungeons and Dragons or Shadowrun or whatever, start small. Say, okay, I play this. What can I make for this game that doesn't already exist? And just like start like small things, like, okay, I created a new spell for Pathfinder, or oh, I created a new race for Pathfinder, or I created this new class for Dungeons and Dragons, and like, just start with small little things that you like. And then if you want to delve into the world of like creating a whole new game, I mean, it's hard to reinvent the wheel of games, whether it's computer games or console games or tabletop games. I mean, so many people did already stuff that you have to tell yourself, okay, it looks, people will say it looks like insert name of the game here, but at the same time, you can make a game special to you and to the people that plays it, by just loving it and saying, okay, what can I do so this game is not like Dungeons and Dragons but with a skin?
I love that. That's incredible advice. So, final question, Jonathan: where can people find out more about Arkelon Chronicles and the upcoming Kickstarter?
Well, we have a website. We are on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Reddit, and Discord. So we are basically everywhere. So whenever people want to know more or speak to us or everything, we have a foot in like every social medias. So it's easy to communicate with us, check more about the game. The website has some of like some more lore stuff with pictures of the races that are coming out, and we are putting it there. We also have a link to the Kickstarter page and the Playtest version on the website. So if people want to check it out, it's there. And we are posting like some little blog articles too on the website to explain more about some little parts of the development, or just about the game in general too. So if people are interested, they can just go on the website and check out mostly everything.
All right. Yes, people go find their socials. Everybody on this team is so welcoming and incredibly sweet, and I've loved this little community that I've found. Jonathan, thank you so much for coming on this show. I'm going to post all of Arkelon Chronicles social in the description down below this. Jonathan and Arkelon Chronicles are scheduled to launch very soon. Thank you so much for joining us. Jonathan, thank you again. Have a good night.
Have a good night too, and thanks to you.
Thank you again to Jonathan for coming onto the show this week, and thank you for listening. Really enjoyed talking with him, and I'm actually very truly excited for this Kickstarter to begin. If you like the show and you want to hear more, make sure you tell a friend. Word of mouth is one of the best ways to grow the show, and let me know what you want to hear more about. I'm also always looking for more people to come onto the show, so if you or someone you know is working on something you think is interesting or cool, send them to one of the links down below so that they can get a hold of me, and maybe we can talk about it. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you again on April 6th.